big news, of course, at the weekend, the release of hostages has begun. A British-Israeli woman was released by Hamas after 15 months in captivity, saying she's returned to life. This is 28-year-old Emily Damari, was among 3 hostages released yesterday as part of that ceasefire deal. It saw 90 Palestinian prisoners freed as well. The first phase of the ceasefire, lasting 6 weeks, should see a total of 33 Israeli hostages held by Hamas exchanged for about 1,900 Palestinian prisoners and detainees from Gaza. The second phase will focus on freeing the remaining living hostages, while the third will recover the bodies of the deceased. Let's speak with Keith Fraser, founder of the Israel Solidarity Movement. Keith, good afternoon to you, sir.
Good afternoon, Ian. Thanks for having me.
It's a pleasure. For those uninitiated with this, what's with the disparity? 1,900 Palestinian prisoners, and I appreciate there's not as many Israeli hostages in totality, but nonetheless, I mean, one might assume that in exchange for that, every prisoner would be released, every hostage would be released straight away.
Of course, it is a big disparity, and I can only refer you back to another disparity when Gilad Shalit, who was in Hamas captivity for, I think, 5 years, something like that, and Israel, in its desperation to see freedom to its people, they released 1,000 prisoners in its jails, terrorists, convicted killers, one of them being Yahya Sinwar, who, as you know, was, until he was eliminated by the IDF recently, the leader of Hamas, and who orchestrated the abominable crimes on October the 7th.
Yeah.
It is a disparity, but it is reflective of the festering sore that is the hostages that remain in Hamas captivity. And Israel is very much a country that glorifies life, much to the opposite of their enemy that glorifies death, and it would do whatever it can to make sure that people are free and safe.
Yeah, and I guess, I mean, we can talk about disparities and all sorts of other quirks and things we don't necessarily understand, Keith, or things that feel sort of wrong. And I suppose people who are professionals at dealing with these, or certainly across these kind of peace deals or ceasefires or whatever they happen to be in different parts of the world, they inevitably throw up these problems, right? There's lots about, I'm sure lots of people, when the IRA were brokering peace deals, couldn't quite believe that Martin McGuinness then became the education secretary, knowing what he'd previously done in his life. But that is the nature of stuff like this. Is that how we have to leave it?
Look, unfortunately, I've never been party to negotiations of captured hostages. I don't see a parallel with the IRA and Hamas. Hamas are a jihadist organization whose sole purpose is actually one of an Islamist ideology, killing Jews first because they're right next door, Christians next, including yourself, Ian, I'm afraid. So it's a very different ideology. Look, I've never been party to these negotiations. They're obviously very sensitive, and it has placed Israel in a very, very difficult position in which it wanted to completely eradicate Hamas. But of course, it's under a lot of pressure to free its hostages and free its people. And that's the choice I've had to make.
And is the problem, in a curious way, that some might perceive this, you sort of embolden Hamas. You put Hamas on an equivalent level when you carve out these kind of negotiations, and that in itself is a problem, because the idea that they're going away is certainly not going to happen, and even if they were, they're certainly not now.
Look, Ian, you know, people go on about all these different solutions in order to aid peace. There's only one thing that will aid peace, and that is re-education. You see, unfortunately, the Palestinian culture, I hate to say it, pretty much across the board is one which is pretty sick and depraved. Their textbooks, sick and depraved. Their imams' sermons, sick and depraved. Their TV stations, sick and depraved, with incitement to violence. Now, until you have a situation where the children from birth are educated, those people are not going away, you don't have to like them, but we live next door and try and have a better life. Golda Meir said it many, many years ago, when the Arabs stop hating us, more than they love their children, there will be peace. There is no other reason and no other option than the re-education and the de-radicalisation. It's the only possibility. And yes, you're right, Ian. Unfortunately, Hamas have not gone away. Yes, they will recruit. Yes, the West are stupid insofar as they will keep giving aid to the Palestinians in Gaza, only for them to siphon it away on building terrorist tunnels, etc., etc. And we will see another cycle unless what I just highlighted to you changes.
We are in a phase mode now. I mean, this is very early doors. How does it feel to you, Keith? How does it instinctively look in terms of certainly what has been agreed will pan out and follow the chronology as has been set out in this agreement? Do you have confidence?
I have hope that the hostages come back. One of the hostages is a cousin of my wife who's been in captivity. He is one of the 33 who were on that list. No one knows whether he's alive or dead. And I can only imagine, in fact, I said to my wife yesterday, I said, when you see the families of the released hostages and their emotions, I almost felt sorry for the ones who haven't had that privilege for their family to come home yet. Because, of course, all they're doing is living in pain and anguish. Look, I want the hostages back. We want those people free. It is a festering sore in Israeli society. But at the same time, for the longer term, we want to see peace. Israel wants to live in peace. And unfortunately, when you have jihadists everywhere you look, left, right, north and or left, right, up and down, you've got jihadists everywhere, all funded, of course, by Iran. Until there is some sort of reformation, a re-education, you will only see violence continue, I'm afraid, Ian.
And that is, and that is the sad reality of all of this. We hope not, but you know, there's a sort of certain sense that we've seen a lot of this before. Keith, thank you for your time, sir, and I hope your wife's cousin is among those that are released very, very soon. Keith Fraser, founder of the Israel Solidarity Movement, with us on the programme.